I may as well hit you with a couple of AC/DC questions since
Yeah,
we're
sure.
there. Now, as is documented, your first week with the band in 75 was hectic, to say the least. An audition, rehearsal, live shows, and then the Baby Please Don't Go countdown appearance. After that, the juggernaut just surged rapidly forward, didn't it?
Well, it's to look back, it's always amazing to look back and look how fast that thing moved. You know, when I joined the band, it was probably towards the end of March 1975, and you know, we were playing to 15, 20 people in pubs. You know, I went and saw them in the Station Hotel on a Tuesday night after, you know, they did the first set, and the second set was basically me getting up and playing the whole of the High Voltage album. You know. So they could have, you know, Michael Brown could have a look at me at such and such. But from then, the thing moved along at an incredible rate. So within, you know, 6 months after that, High Voltage album sold over 100,000 copies. It was, and back in those days, that was ridiculous numbers. It just took off. It's a strange thing, though. It's when you're inside something like that, moving so quickly, you don't really notice it all that much. What you do notice, though, is the amount of people turning up to shows, and the crowds just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But the AC/DC crowd back in those days, there was two separate crowds. There was the under 18s crowd that we used to get at like the town hall and city hall sort of under 18 shows on Friday and Saturday night, which were basically screaming young teenage girls. Then there was the pub crowd that got into us. So there was two completely diverse groups of people that liked us, you know. So it was, and by the time we got back from England, the teeny bopper thing had dropped right off, and it started becoming the band that it would go on to be.
Well, with those early days, you had no prior band experience on that level to gauge it against, did you? I mean, I think your previous outfit, Judd, only gigged sporadically, right? So.
No, there was you know, as far as, you know, the bands I played in before that were, you know, with mates around, you wouldn't even call us semi-professional. Probably did like 15 or 20 gigs with them. That's all, you know. But I got an armchair ride with AC/DC because I could play okay, you know. There wasn't any problem with that. The material, you know, wasn't a stretch either, of course. But you know, if you've got a bit of an idea about how to play bass, and you like rock and roll and blues-based rock and roll, and you go into a rhythm section with Malcolm Young and Phil Rudd, if you can't do that job, you know, there's something wrong with it, you know. So playing with those two guys, it just gave me an armchair ride. So it was a really steep learning curve for me, but particularly ending up in the studio, I think it was June 1975 to record TNC. You know, George Young, I was lucky enough to have George Young take me under his wing too, which was, you know, what I learned off George, you know, doing the 3 albums I did with George is insurmountable what I learned off him. He's probably the most astute guy, you know, probably along with Malcolm, that I've ever met in the business. But like at that stage, George was still very much a senior part of the setup where Malcolm was looking to George. That's slowly over the years turned around, you know, and then Malcolm was like the top of the tree, so to speak. But I'm forever grateful about what I learned from being in that band. I was only in the band, obviously, for a very small percentage of the time the band's been operating. But I think they're a very important and very formative part of the band, and it was just great. I look back at those times very, very fondly indeed, and always will.